it's Joe back with another Christmas recipe, as you can tell from my beautiful attire. So today we're going to make Christmas tree brownies, which are super easy to decorate and look really cool, and you can shove them on little sticks and make them look even sweeter. So the things you will need to make your brownie mixture are 185 grams of butter, 185 grams of dark chocolate, 85 grams of plain flour, with 40 grams of cocoa powder. I've just shoved it in the same thing, it's all going together. 100 grams of some kind of chocolate chip, 3 large eggs, and 275 grams of sugar. So the first thing we're going to do in a pan is just melt our butter and our chocolate together, because we need to set that to the side and let it cool. So I'll shove them in there. And while we're doing that, I am going to, well, I've already lined my tin, but I'm going to preheat my oven. So my oven needs to be at 180 degrees. I had to check that, I didn't think I'd written that down. So if you've got an electric oven, that's 350 degrees, and if you've got a fan oven, it's 160 degrees centigrade. Yeah. So while that's in there, we need to start whisking together our sugar and our eggs. So I'm using brown sugar. You could just use white sugar, but I just thought it would give it a nicer taste. It'll give it a deeper kind of caramelly taste. So that's 1 egg. Make a mess, 2 eggs. I was a bit rough with that one. And 3 eggs. Okay, so that's my chocolate and butter mix nice and melted together. I now need to leave this one side to cool, because if I put it in hot, it's going to curdle my eggs. So while that's cooling down, I've got 3 eggs and my sugar in a bowl, which I'm going to whip until they're double in size. So we'll cut to when it's done, because you don't want to get deafened by all the noise. Right, so my eggs are now nice and fluffy. Basically, there's no other rising agent in this apart from your eggs. So you need to try and keep as much of that air in as possible. So what we're first going to do is fold in our chocolate mixture. So you've got to do this normally with the brownie mix, round the side, so you don't knock too much air out. So hopefully this isn't too hot. We're just going to pour it in gently around the side. If you've got a stand mixer, you can do this while it's mixing. You just don't want to knock too much air out of it. So I'm just using a figure of 8 pattern just to combine it. Yummy. So as you can see, it's in, but it's not, I haven't knocked any of that air out. And then the next thing to go in is our flour and cocoa powder. Again, we're trying not to knock any air out of this, so we're going to sift it in. I might have to ask my nice able assistant. Alright, I'll put it in the pan. It's all good. You're safe, Paddy, you're safe. So I'm just going to sift some of this in a bit at a time. Keeps all the lumps out, and it keeps as much air as possible in your mix. Also, and when you're using cocoa powder that's this strong, it makes you sneeze. It's really strong. So again, just using a figure of 8, we're going to incorporate that flour. It takes a little bit of doing, it's a bit faffy, but eventually it will take. So you need to do this step by hand, not in your mixer, because if you use your mixer you'll just knock all of that air out that you've just worked really hard to get in. So once you get to this stage, you don't need to be too gentle with it, but just don't beat the bejesus out of it, because you'll knock all that air out. As you can see, it's really fluffy and light. It's almost moussey. So once you get to this stage, you don't need to be too gentle with it, but just don't beat the bejesus out of it, because you'll knock all that air out. As you can see, it's really fluffy and light. It's almost moussey. And we've got one more step after I've incorporated all this, which is just to add our chocolate chips, and then it's going straight in your pan and in the oven. So brownies can be an absolute pain in the backside to cook, because it's really difficult to judge if they're cooked through properly or if they're still gooey in the middle, which is what you want. So these need to bake for about 25 minutes. So when you take the tin out at 25 minutes, if you give it a shake and it wobbles in the middle, it needs to go in a little bit longer. You also need to have loads of patience with brownies and let them cool completely in the pan. Because if you don't, it goes a big fudgy mess and it goes absolutely everywhere. I've had that happen to me far too many times when I've been impatient. So that's our brownie mix. It's looking yummy. We're just going to add our chocolate. In fact, this is dark chocolate because I, if you hadn't noticed, put milk chocolate in my mix earlier. So I'm just going to swap this out for some milk chocolate. Right. So I am now going to add my chocolate, which again I'm just going to fold in. Make sure it's all nicely worked through. And then in my lime tin, which is an 8x8 tin, which I have greased ever so slightly, I'm just going to pour it in gently. I don't want to knock the air out at this point, so don't just dump it in. Need to be gentle. And there we have it. So this is going to go in the oven now, like I said, at 180 degrees centigrade, 160 fan or 150 Fahrenheit for 25 minutes, and then I will come back and show you what it needs to look like. Right, so it's out of the oven. I did actually end up giving it an extra 10 minutes because it wasn't quite cooked. It's quite a thick brownie mix. It's still got a very, very, very slight wobble, but I've tested the outside and about an inch and a half in, it's coming out clean. I don't want to bake it any further because I don't want it to be overcooked, but I've now got to leave it. And have patience of a saint because it's got to be left for about 4 hours before I can cut into it and hope to God it's not too gooey in the middle. So we'll be back in about 4 hours time when it's all nice and cool. Right, so it's 4 hours later. We have perfectly cooled and absolutely gorgeous fudgy brownie, which I've cut into thirds. So from here we are going to turn our brownies into little Christmas trees, which we're then going to decorate with some green icing. So what you will need for this next stage is some candy canes. I've made some green buttercream. You can even, if you're feeling lazy, buy vanilla buttercream and just dye it green. I've got some red M&Ms or any other kind of red sweets. Got some little silver pearls. And I've got some hundreds of thousands. So we'll bring the camera closer and I'll show you up close what we're going to do next. So to start with, we need to make some little triangles. Okay? So obviously I've made a couple. I'm just going to put these ones on a plate so that I've got some room to move. Okay, so with your third, all you need to do is move that bit out the way, is cut the beginning of one triangle and then just keep going. So obviously this is quite thick brownie, it's very rich, so we're not going for humongous pieces. You should get 5 and a couple of extra bits, which I'm just going to chop up and throw in a tub, and then we've got some little brownie bites for when we need a little sugar rush. So I've got one more to cut up and then we're going to stick our sticks in. Right, so to make our little sticks, all we're doing is cutting candy cane from the shop, and I'm going to cut them in half. These ones are quite soft, so they actually are quite easy to break. But I'm just scoring it with the knife where I want it to break and then snapping it anyway. I mean, you could secure these in the end with a bit of chocolate, but they seem to be staying alright in the ones I've made, so hope for the best. I'm just going to score it in the middle and snap. Right, I'll come back when I've got them all ready. Okay, so we've got all our brownies ready on sticks and we're going to go in with some icing. So I want this to look a little bit like tinsel. So I'm using a little tiny, well it's not, it's actually quite a big star tube. I'm going to try this, I might have to re-edit it. So we're just going to go in with some little roses going across. You can use any kind of tube to do this. I just thought it would look quite cute with the star tube. And we'll put a bit at the top to put our star of the tree on. So we're going to decorate with a silver ball right at the top of our tree. If you can get hold of some little yellow stars, or you can make some little yellow stars, all the better. It'll look really cute. And then I'm going to dot mine with some red chocolate to make it look a little bit more festive. Actually, you know what? We're going to stick a couple of more silver balls in there. And then a little glitter in, which is going to make a mess of hundreds and thousands. And there we have our little Christmas trees. So there we have them. Oh, we're going everywhere. Our little Christmas tree brownies, which I'm sure you'll agree look super tasty. They are super tasty because we tried them. And look lovely and would be a lovely present for anybody this Christmas time. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe and this idea for decorating. And if you did, give us a like, give us a comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you've got any ideas of things you'd like to see in the future, particularly around New Year's Eve, because I'm having to think about what I could do for that, then please give us a comment and we'll see what we can do. Bye for now.